Hello everybody. I'd like to deal today with the question of whether you're allowed to sell clothes that are not modest. First, let's try and understand what's going to be the question here. The question here is the commandment of Lifnei Iver lo titen michshol. You shouldn't put a stumbling block in the way of the blind. A stumbling block would be to sell immodest clothing to someone who doesn't understand, doesn't realize how important it is to be modest in the way you're dressing. And so you are giving them a stumbling block by selling to them these clothes that are immodest. So in order to understand whether this mitzvah of Lifnei Iver lo titen michshol, this prohibition of putting a stumbling block in front of the blind, whether it applies to the case of selling immodest clothing, let's understand what the basis of this issur is. The Gemara in Masechet Nazir, and Nazir speaks about this. The Nazir is a person who made a vow that they're not going to drink any wine. The vow is valid. He has to now keep his vow, and for him to drink wine would be like someone else eating non-kosher food. You have a bottle of wine and you offer it to him. Are you transgressing Lifnei Iver lo titen michshol, putting a stumbling block in his way by offering him the bottle of wine? Maybe he's now going to be tempted because of you to drink the wine. The answer that the Gemara gives is that it depends where the Nazir is. If our Nazir is in a place where he can't get any wine, and you're the only person that's offering a bottle of wine, then you're transgressing the prohibition of putting a stumbling block in front of the blind. You're going to cause him to stumble. You may cause him to stumble. But if our Nazir can get wine in plenty of other places, he doesn't need you to give him the wine. He can get the wine in other places. So then you haven't transgressed the prohibition of putting a stumbling block in front of the blind. So immodest clothing generally is something that can be got in many, many places. I must add in that if the other places are also from Jews who will be transgressing, putting a stumbling block in front of the blind, then this doesn't apply. It only applies where the other people would be non-Jews who wouldn't have a prohibition of putting a stumbling block in front of other people. For them, if there are other people like that around in the marketplace, then a Jew would also be allowed to sell because he is not considered as putting a stumbling block in front of this person, because this person can get these immodest clothing anywhere else that they want. He doesn't need you to give it to them. So there would be no issur d'oraisa of putting a stumbling block in front of the blind if that's the situation, that immodest clothing can be got from other places. But there's also an issur d'Rabbanan involved here of being misayeh la'ovrei aveira. That's helping someone else to do an aveira. We find that there's an issur d'Rabbanan of helping someone else to do an aveira. So here it would seem that you're helping someone else to do that aveira. However, the Ketav Sofer writes that when is there an issur of helping someone else to do an aveira? That's when you're helping them at the time they're doing the aveira. But if you're just providing them with something and afterwards they're going to do the aveira, that's not considered as if you've helped them to do the aveira. Let's take for an example, to light someone's cigarette on Shabbat. That would be helping someone to do an aveira. That would be the issur d'Rabbanan of masayeh la'ovrei aveira, of helping someone else do an aveira, because you're helping them at the actual time when they're doing the aveira, even though they could have got a light from someone else. You're helping them now at the actual time of the aveira when they light their cigarette on Shabbat. But if you're providing them with something that afterwards they're going to do the aveira with, then that's not the issur d'Rabbanan of being misayeh la'ovrei aveira, says the Ketav Sofer. The Rav Vosner paskins like that. The halacha that to sell immodest clothing is not a transgression. Whether it's a profession for a nice Jewish boy to do, that is a moral question that each person has to deal with for himself. But as far as the issur is concerned, there is no issur involved in selling immodest clothing. Let me add on another thing, that it's also not certain that the person who buys will wear them in an immodest way. being immodest is generally dependent on the person, the way they're acting, and not on the clothes. Right? You can wear immodest clothes with something underneath them in a way that they are modest. So the Aveira is also not clear that it'll be transgressed here. So to summarize, selling not tznius clothes, immodest clothes, is not an issa. It's a moral question that each person will have to deal with for himself. Who said it was easy being Jewish? May Hashem guide everyone to make the right decisions. Thank you.